My name is Marek Rudak, and the goal of this video is to help you lead in personal professional relationships by today reflecting on an understanding that beats the odds. Understanding that beats the odds. A little bit of a mouthful, but believe it or not, the inspiration for this video is me watching Midway a couple weeks ago. Midway is a major turning point in the Pacific during World War II in the naval warfare. I knew as much from my knowledge on history, but what I did not know is just how much the American forces had up against them, number-wise and quality-wise. For example, the Japanese had 4 aircraft carriers, whereas the United States had 2 aircraft carriers. Japanese had far more better quality pilots and better aircraft. America was on its way to catching up, but at that point in history, they were behind. And here's the interesting thing, and this goes back to the odds, the understanding that beats the odds. What gave the U.S. forces advantage, first of all, was intercepting Japanese communication. He had this really smart guy who was able to intercept Japanese communication and piecemeal figure out that the Japanese are going to attack Midway with 4 aircraft carriers. Now, at this point, the Admiral Nimitz, I want to say general because I'm in the army, but Admiral Nimitz had a choice. He could have used that information and do their best to inflict some damage, but then withdraw and wait for more ships to be built. So then eventually the U.S. Navy could beat the Japanese with higher numbers. But no, he said that, hey, me knowing that when they're coming is going to give me an advantage that I cannot pass up. And so he decided to launch a counterattack. And the interesting thing is that back then, these days we take radar for granted, but back then nobody knew where the enemy ships were unless you're able to see them through an aircraft or through your binoculars. And so you have this vast ocean, so there's no way where the enemy aircraft carrier is. And he said, hey, I know where they're going to be. I'm not going to pass up this opportunity. And guess what? Even though there was a lot of mishaps, I don't have time to go into it, a lot of mistakes made, the U.S. forces prevailed because they seized an advantage. They seized initiative. And for the entire battle, the Japanese had no idea what's going on. And that gave U.S. forces an opening. Even though they were outnumbered and didn't have as many quality pilots, they were able to hit Japanese decisively and lose only 1 aircraft carriers while damaging 4 of Japanese carriers. So that's a huge decisive victory, because from that point on, the Japanese went on the defensive and U.S. forces went on the offensive. So what am I getting at? How does that help relationships? Well, I guess first of all, it shows how universal relationships are, in a sense that you can pretty much take anything and draw lessons from it. But the first one is communication, because here's the thing, guys. Whenever we communicate and the communication is ambiguous, the tendency is, and I see it from my clients as well as myself sometimes, is to assume the worst, right? Hold on a second, my cat's over there. Come on, Ollie. Okay, stay there. We assume the worst. And and the funny thing about it is us clarifying what the other person is saying is almost like decoding an enemy script, if you will, because it is. Because if we don't clarify, we'll assume that the person is the enemy. So that's the first thing, is taking the initiative to clarify the communications, much like the American forces did with Japanese communications. And then the second one is show up. Show up. Once you have that information, show up and do your best to turn that relationship around, because you have the information that, hey, this person didn't mean that, so let me show up and see what I can do to mend that relationship. So my friends, how you do one thing is how you do everything. How you fight the battle of Midway is how you win in your relationship. So if you have a relationship that you're struggling with, and it's mostly due to the communications that you're picking up for the other person, please try to decode. Please try to clarify it and show up to see what you can do to mend that relationship. And if you need help, please go to cs1mindset.com and I'll be more than glad to help you out. Sign up for a complimentary relationship audit, and you will not regret it. Until next time, God bless, and talk to you soon.